For me, many would probably assume that my parent like pushed it on me, but it's definitely the opposite. Like my mom, she she always tells me that I'm beautiful. Like even when I was darker, she always told me I was beautiful. She never said I had to use cream or use anything to lighten my skin. I just got influenced by the media, honestly.
Yeah, I have a similar experience. My mom, she really embraced my hair, told me it was beautiful, and encouraged me to grow it. But I just remember watching like TV, Disney Channel, and all of these things, and asking, why can't my hair look like that? Why can't it be straight? So for me, it's the same. I saw it more through the media, but I was still getting that support from my family, that encouragement.
Earlier, Isaiah said,
I feel like it sounds like you're saying racism is like a choice almost.
again, I say, yeah, racism is a choice because you literally said that your parents were nice to you about your hair. So if that were the case, why did you need your hair to be straight? You chose to believe that the Disney Channel people's hair was better than your hair. But why? You made that choice. That's why.
Yeah, it's pretty obvious. I think, what's permeating for me is like information and accessibility to that. I grew up in the Bronx. So people are around people that look like them for almost their whole lives. And so it's like so embedded that way. It's so embedded, like they stay in the projects forever. And, I managed to leave. Like I went out of the hood to get an education and I already didn't look like them because of my fair skin. I'll go back and I've been having these conversations, these kind of like esoteric seeming conversations that people that I grew up with have never had before.
I think that's interesting. I'm sorry, I gotta be the odd man out again, I guess. What I'm hearing is that because you've had a different experience, you think that the people who stayed home, because people do stay home, they don't leave their hometowns, you think that they've been held back because of their race?
No, that's not what I'm saying at all. No, that's not what I said. Racial experience will change depending on where you're located, I think, is all I'm saying. And so people might not have as much of an awareness of how they are different from others if they're in a homogeneous environment. So it isn't until they experience something different and are in an environment of diversity and of different experience that they see, oh wait, maybe I am of marginalized experience. And then they bring that back and, they can try and pretend like they never saw that, but, and try and integrate back into their home life, but that's impossible. You can't unsee it.
I am with you, Kelvin, when she said,
oh wait, maybe I am of marginalized experience.
I also cringed. She literally said that she just went out of her hometown and had some new experiences. It sounds like she learned a lot and was able to come back to her hometown and share her knowledge. Instead of seeing this as a good thing, she turns it around, like leftists do, and say, oh, but it made me feel like a victim. If you continually act like this, you will never improve yourself or your environment.
So we've talked a lot about some of the systems that contribute to colorism, but let's talk about the media and the cultural aspect.
I noticed there's an oversaturation of lighter skinned biracial women who are sort of meant to be the representatives of blackness on TV.
Oh, here we go with the representation crap. Now you're gonna complain that the lighter-skinned black people on TV somehow are not representative of black people? Do you know how insulting that sounds to those people? They're successful in an industry that you guys claim doesn't like you. Except, clearly, something is working for those people. And you're gonna sit here and say that they don't matter because they're not dark? Do you know how racist you sound right now? To your own selves.
I also think representation definitely can't fix everything, right?
Correct. Representation cannot fix anything, so why do you guys keep harping on it? All it does is give me a damn headache.
But I think seeing more dark-skinned women in the media, like Lupita Nyong'o, who's just gorgeous, I was like, well, if she's beautiful, it's like, why do I think like dark skin is ugly?
Two things here. The first is you guys say more representation will help you, but you still think dark skin is ugly despite seeing Lupita Nyong'o, who is a famous dark woman on TV. So I ask, does representation help you? Does representation do a damn thing for you? Clearly it does not. The second thing is you're making a choice to still think that dark skin is ugly. Here's another example, Isaiah, of how people choose racism.
And I think it becomes frustrating when you feel like you constantly have to wait for representation, like everyone will get representation before you.
And even when we are presented, we're presented as ghetto and loud and like we're not meant to be in a relationship. Like we always like stress our partner out, we're annoying, like we complain a lot. And
maybe you need to stop watching rap videos where the black women are dancing like whores. Maybe you just need to watch better television. Stop watching Desperate Housewives of Atlanta and watch Scandal, where Kerry Washington plays a woman who owns a crisis management firm and she helps important people clean up public relations disasters. Watch Grey's Anatomy, where Chandra Wilson plays a surgeon at a prominent hospital. Watch How to Get Away with Murder, where Viola Davis plays a law professor and a criminal defense lawyer, a black woman who holds two prominent classy jobs at the same time. There are classy black women in entertainment, so stop spreading lies about how black women are portrayed.
it just sucks. Like I was saying, like it does do something to your head. And I personally feel like black women are at the bottom of the barrel. Like nobody wants black women. Like nobody desires black women. They basically think we're trash. And that gets to your head, especially when you have a whole bunch of,
I feel like this is a long list of Destiny's own insecurities. The black boys at school who bullied her have made her feel like she is at the bottom of the barrel and nobody wants or desires her. She thinks her own self is trash, and she's projecting that onto what she thinks society thinks of all the black women ever born. Obviously, people don't think that. Do people think that about Michelle Obama? People fucking worshipped her for some reason. People don't think that about Oprah. Oprah is like the talk show queen. Tyra Banks and Naomi Campbell were admired as fashion icons. Diana Ross and Whitney Houston are beloved musicians. People admire all of these women.
Even celebrities, like men, black men, like wanting to be with white women or lighter skinned women, it makes you feel like you're just not wanted. And it makes you feel like you want to join the hype.
We have made a lot of progresses in the campaigns. You do see a wider range of shades, but why is that all of a sudden a trend? You know what I mean?
First off, Isaiah used the wrong version of the word progresses in his sentence. He used the verb progresses instead of the noun progress. Progress is the noun form of progresses, and it doesn't need to be plural. Progresses is a verb that means move forward. You progress forward to make progress. We have made a lot of progress in the campaigns. That is the grammar lesson for today because the grammar of America is appalling. Secondly, why are you complaining that you are seeing a wider range of shades? Isn't that what you just said is the type of progress you wanted to see in the campaigns?
I'm happy it's happening, but I feel like this is something that should have been happening.
Oh my God, leftists. You're happy, but you're not happy. Are you happy? You're not happy. You're complaining. So it happened, but you're upset that it didn't happen 4 seconds ago. What does that have to fucking do with anything? Can't you just be happy about the thing that you wanted to happen? Why are you focusing on the fact that it didn't happen 4 seconds earlier?
And also a lot of the time you can put these wide ranges of shades in front of the lens, but my question is, when I show up to set, what's the crew giving,
If I show up to a set, I'd like the crew to be giving me donuts. Maybe Starbucks coffee, some fruit, maybe a Danish. Those things sound good.
Mm-hmm. Where there are people of color helping formulate the formulas of the product. It's so much deeper than just what you see in front of the lens.
What? People of color have to be making the beauty products for your campaigns? Otherwise, the industry is racist? Why the hell does it matter who makes the beauty formulas? The only thing that is important about the makeup is that it is non-toxic on a person's skin. Why do I know more about your industry than you do?
I do worry sometimes, like Isaiah said, there will be, and again, I use this word very intentionally, moments, but it often gets translated back into the culture as a trend. Trends are not lasting, trends are not legislation, trends are not resources, trends are not restructuring of ideas and resources.
Chairs are not tables. Chairs are not couches. Chairs are not refrigerators. Chairs are not washing machines. Koa's ability to say nothing with a list of words is astounding. Also, I'd like French dressing with my word salad, please.
Let's bring it back to social media for a second. What do you think of first when you hear the word cultural appropriation?
I think of the word bullshit. Culture is the way a society does things. One of the ways culture changes are when two different cultures mix together, like Tex-Mex. Texan culture mixed with Mexican culture and became a new culture. The appropriation shit is just one culture bitching about another culture's stuff and trying to claim ownership over that stuff that sometimes isn't even tangible. The other reason this is stupid is because a lot of it is stuff that has gone back so far in history that nobody even knows who the fuck actually started it. It doesn't matter who started it, but these people will still argue about it. The most popular pointless thing to bitch about are braids. Vikings, Chinese, Africans, and Native Americans all braided their hair. Vikings and the Chinese are older civilizations, but they were on opposite sides of the world from each other. Did one of them steal braids from the other one? Or was it just a practical way to keep long hair out of a person's face because there were no hair salons back then, or scissors? Braiding is a way to keep long hair tidy. Things change and you often don't even know where things started. So arguing about who owns the thing is bullshit, and that's why cultural appropriation is bullshit.
Cultural appropriation to me is not braids that are being stolen or something, or things that are, you know, people. If somebody can do braids and they want to do braids, they can do braids. That's not cultural appropriation to me. It might be cultural appreciation, and I think that that's something that is looked over a lot. I think that cultural appropriation comes in place where, like political parties will use struggles of Black people to get laws passed or something like that. That to me is cultural appropriation.
Kelvin's definition of cultural appropriation seems like the most valid one I've ever heard. If a politician was going into a Black neighborhood, taking their culture, and using it in order to get votes from their community, that would be an example of someone profiting off of a culture that wasn't theirs and exploiting the members of that culture.
When it comes to cultural appropriation, the reason why, for example, indigenous peoples of the Americas don't want you wearing a headdress.
Ooh, speak for yourself, Maya. Leftists love to speak for other people and make them sound like they're being compassionate towards those other people when they're really being condescending. Leftists put their own thoughts into the other people's mouths and claim that their leftist ideas are the correct ideas. This is a form of leftist colonization. I've heard Native American people say that the football team mascots were honoring their culture because we were remembering it. They actually want to change the name back to Washington Redskins because the mascot for the Redskins was an actual Indian chief. Taking him off of the helmet was actually doing his memory a disservice because that erased him from American culture. Putting him back on the helmet would make him remembered for as long as we have American football.
It's because what has happened for the last 500 years, like literally acts of genocide.
America is only 247 years old, so what is this 500 years of stuff you're talking about? This is like that other chick in the Asian Vice panel who said we had 47 other presidents when Biden is president number 46. Leftists know nothing about American history or American current events. Yet they're sitting here preaching to everyone about what they think they know about things.
Being put in boarding schools, like literally being killed and discriminated against and experiencing real harm for like being able to wear their cultural traditions. We're talking about the black hair textures discrimination legally because it happens, because there are like, for example, schools, like workplaces, like various forms of employment that say that like you as a black person having this black hairstyle will not be accepted. Like we're not okay with that. And so when I see a white girl wear Fulani braids or type of braids, whatever type of braids, I'm just like, you're never gonna experience in the way that like a black person is for wearing their own cultural traditions, like real like socioeconomic discrimination. Like, I don't know. I just think that I'm over it.
I kind of wanted to touch on like the idea of cultural appreciation. And for me, I do love when people take certain aspects of my culture and when they credit it to mine. And I think oftentimes we can see on TikTok and other medias, like sometimes white people act like they thought of an idea that's like historically existed. And that to me is not appreciation anymore.
Yegana has brought up the fact that people don't know history. And Maya proved she doesn't know a damn thing about history. I think we all need to take a fucking history class and learn some things instead of sitting around bitching about why racism inception exists.
The line for me is just, between appropriation and appreciation is benefiting. You know what I mean? If you do something that a culture has been teased about, put down about, and then you put it on now that it's a trend and you're benefiting from it, you're getting these followers, you're able to raise your prices because of that. All of these things are really detrimental and they're kind of heartless.
I think Isaiah's a little bit jealous of the more successful beauty influencers, and I only say that because he mentions they're able to raise their prices. It sounds like he can't find a reason to raise his prices, so he gets upset when he sees other people doing what he deems to be cultural appropriation, being able to raise their prices. So then he's jealous of their business succeeding, so he's going to blame it on cultural appropriation.
With these platforms that are new and are emerging, the same dynamics are mirrored back to us, whether that is racism, colorism, misogyny, Islamophobia. When we have new platforms like this, they are not bigger than these things. They do not exceed these things. They literally just mirror back these same realities, these same problems, these same dynamics.
Every time Koa talks, I have no fucking idea what the hell her point is. Her speech teacher must have been Obama. Lot of words with zero substance.
If not amplify them.
And if you're looking for racism, you're going to find it. If you're looking for colorism, you're going to find it. And I think, and that's not, I'm not trying to negate anybody's lived experience, but I think that there's also a thing in life that if you're looking for something, you can speak it into existence.
I agree with Kelvin that if you're gonna pretend there's racism everywhere, then you're gonna justify it by making up bullshit why something was racist when it was completely innocent. That's what I think microaggressions are. Somebody says something innocent, and the other person is looking for racism. So they make up this wild story in their head why the innocent thing was a racist comment, and then they call it a microaggression.
Yeah, so to speak to that, let's say me and Kelvin were in a group chat with a non-black person, and they sent a gift that could be considered a black gift. I think it's, and I accuse them of digital blackface, but he doesn't. And so, pause it there because you guys were saying like, just because something's happening or like, if we have different feelings on it, whose point of view determines if something is actually happening or not, or if we're still in the realm of opinion and feeling.
Welcome to the reason why we need objective truth. People are going to have different feelings and opinions about everything because we have brains and we are humans. The truth about an object is the grounding factor of how the object exists in reality. Lamar brings up a good point with the GIF comment. GIFs exist as a form of digital conversation because we have the internet. People's opinions about the GIFs are always going to be different, as are people's feelings about GIFs. There are certain GIFs I don't really like using, but if someone else uses them, I'm not going to scold them for sending one to me because they may really like the GIF I don't like. It's best to just let that shit go. Let it go, let it go. Because it's not that important in the big picture of what happens in my life.
I think as a non-black person, if even one black person told me something's not okay, I would listen to them. It could be 1 out of 100. I would really.
You don't think that's dangerous? I'm sorry to cut
Very
you off,
dangerous.
but you don't think that's
Very
dangerous?
That's insane.
Because you're giving me the power to determine how you interact with
But it's
Black
really.
people.
Yeah, I like Lamar. Lamar is very smart. He's right, that is dangerous. You shouldn't just listen to anyone that comes along. That's being gullible and not thinking for yourself. You know who really loves to take advantage of gullible people? Tyrants. They like to target gullible people who are naive because naive people are easy to manipulate, control, and instill fear into. I can just hear the fear in Yeguna's voice about wanting to listen to the leftist viewpoint that we have to listen to the voices of people of color. Yeguna is making herself a victim of the leftists who bully society into saying and doing exactly what they want. Another word for this is giving into tyranny. This is one way that Yeguna's behavior can lead her into dangerous situations.
But it's
Black
really
people.
not that much power to not use a gift that's not meant for me.
Yeguna has fallen into the leftist trap where they tell you requirements about what you have to do to be a good person. Everyone forgets that the left is not the authority on who's a good person, because the left is full of assholes. If someone is an asshole and they tell you that you're not a good person, it's because they don't have a fucking clue what a good person is, because they're an asshole. Get it? As far as things that are not meant for you, what the fuck does that mean? Does it mean like dresses are not meant for men, so men should stop wearing dresses? Seriously, stop wearing dresses. Men look better in suits. Much, much better in suits. When I think of things that are not meant for you, I think of things like people should not ingest Windex. So there are things that are not meant for us, but it's stuff like that, not digital gifts. Of course, gifts are made for humans, because we are the only species I know of who communicates with each other using tiny videos. When leftists say things aren't meant for you, it's just them trying to control what you do. Leftists have asked me why I watch certain shows, and I say because it was on the streaming service that I paid for and I can watch whatever I want. Leftists think this box is only for white people, this box is only for black people, this box is only for Mexican people. Do you know what that's called? Segregation.
Who said it's not meant for you? If we create content as Black people, we're not posting it on a website where only Black people can get into. We're sharing it with you. I think people get offended when people misuse the content that we have and abuse it. But I can't tell you what GIF. I mean, if it has the N-word in it real big, I'm gonna take offense to that. But you already knew that. You already knew that. But if it's like a niche, popular Black person who does comedy and you post their GIF, I'm not gonna say, well, hey, slow down. Like I don't have that kind of power to tell someone that, and it's dangerous.
I feel like you're like devaluing people's like feelings. You know what I mean? It might not offend you, but let's say you're in a group chat and it bothered him. Why can't you just acknowledge that it bothers him and not you? You know what I mean? Some people have different feelings on different things.
Well,
You know what, Isaiah? Your opinion offends me. Stop giving it. My feelings are hurt because of your opinion, so stop sharing it. Is that okay for me to say? Of course not. That's rude. That's not the way society should function. Telling someone to stop talking because you don't like their opinion is rude. That's exactly what Isaiah is saying when he says,
and it bothered him. Why can't you just acknowledge that it bothers him and not you?
all of this is Isaiah saying that the person who is bothered by the gift's feelings are the only ones who matter, while anyone who doesn't give a shit about the digital gift should just shut up. If we all did that, none of us could talk because we're all different and we have different opinions. There's always going to be someone who's offended by something someone else said. The answer is, don't let your feelings run your life. You can feel your feelings, but eventually you should realize that you don't need to hang on to things that don't matter, like digital gifts. Let it go, let it go.
but here's the thing: simply disagreeing does not mean I'm not acknowledging your feelings.
Okay.
We can disagree
I also-
because I'm sorry. I'll just finish real quick.
Yeah.
If
But you're saying that
the
she
event of
shouldn't say
digital
it's blackface,
blackface
but
is
if it feels like it
determined
is.
by the viewer.
I'd like to mention here the difference between Lamar and Koa. When Koa felt like she was interrupted by Kelvin, her response was incredibly rude and condescending. She was spitting hatred. She said, "I didn't finish speaking!" When Lamar got interrupted by Isaiah, his response was polite yet assertive. He had no hatred in his voice. He said, "I'm sorry, just to finish real quick." Lamar even apologized as a sign of politeness. He asserts the fact that he was interrupted, but he's not spitting hatred at Isaiah despite Isaiah disagreeing with him. That is the difference between Koa and Lamar. Koa feels like Kelvin interrupting her was a personal attack, so she responded with vitriol and defensiveness. Lamar knows that the world doesn't revolve around him, knows that civility is a thing, even when Isaiah is disagreeing and interrupting and being a little bit rude to him. Lamar's response is a good example to follow, not Koa's.
I think in general, like GIFs, like reaction memes, there's a sort of like flattening of people because it's like we only know that person in that context to make us laugh. But I think with like digital blackface or whatever you want to call it, there's the added like aspect of like historically Black people being used as like comedic relief, like whether if you think back to like actual blackface shows and like white people painting themselves like pitch black and like doing things that they think will make other people laugh, like different like Black stereotypes. So I definitely think like there's an aspect to that.
Destiny, how about you? How social media affected your view of colorism?
Like with social media, light-skinned people are important and they're pretty and this and that. And that's the same thing I want to feel. So, and there's a lot of benefits that come along with it, and I want the same benefits. And I'm gonna be honest, I want the same benefits. Like, I don't care.
How do you feel hearing that, Maya?
Interesting, you asked me. First thing that came to mind was thinking about Lil' Kim and how like so many people in 2022 be like, "Oh, you look so good when you were darker skinned." I'm just like, but y'all treating her like shit. Sorry for cussing, but it's the truth. Like she literally said like, all the people I was dating would leave me for white European girls. Like y'all like talked about my nose, he talked about my features, featureism, and just she wanted an easier life. So I'm just like, I think about like, why are there so many material benefits to being lighter? Also, how do we make a world where darker skinned people don't have to do this, like don't have to? Like, I think that I'm interested in creating a world or like moving towards a world where we don't have like these very clear, like straight up pigmentocracy, like straight up like hierarchies of shade that are like rooted in anti-Blackness, that like are influenced by white supremacy, all of these things like that are interconnected with one another.
Again, I say, any kind of racism hierarchy thing is pushed by your own side, Maya. Take it up with them. Maya has been listening to the Democrats who tell her through the news that white supremacy is this thing she has to constantly complain about. So she pushes that narrative throughout this whole panel.
I really feel like it's never gonna change. Like, we want it to change.
I want it to
we
change.
hope that it'll change, but is it really gonna change? I really don't think so.
What do you define as change?
Like, change as like
You want people to...
this fair game for also dark-skinned people. Like, we all are on an equal level. And I feel like that's never going to happen.
Stop thinking about how light or dark you are. Stop worrying about how light or dark you are. Stop freaking out about how light or dark you are. Stop bringing up light versus dark every goddamn fucking chance you get, and things will change.
Well, as I write in my book, stop hitting yourself. Stop hitting yourself. Why are you still hitting yourself?
Let's talk about dating for a second. And has colorism affected your dating life, made it easier or harder?
I think often people push aside the conversations about like romantic relationships for darker skinned people and how limited and how isolating it feels to be darker skinned and experience people ridiculing you or saying purely like, I'm not interested in any darker skinned person, even though there's millions upon millions of people in this world who are dark. Like, making clearly those preferences. I think that we also need to like really, really sit and think about like, what does it mean or like to feel like you're going through an entire life without experiencing like the romantic care that, because we live under capitalism, often the care and like just feelings of love that we receive are regulated to romantic or familial relationships. I think that this is larger than just colorism. Like, what does it mean to not receive care because of how you look?
I can't go inside the head of every woman that I've ever encountered and determine if my color mattered or not. And even if they said it, it might not mean anything. It might not be true.
So it sounds like it hasn't affected, colorism specifically hasn't affected your dating life.
I can't say definitively because
Is there
it's based
anybody
on other
who
people's
can
intentions.
say colorism has it affected their dating? Go ahead.
I feel like the moderator was really rude to Lamar after he said he didn't know why he was dumped because he can't read people's minds. She asks,
So it sounds like it hasn't affected, colorism specifically hasn't affected your dating life.
Lamar says he can't say for sure, and she just immediately doesn't care what he has to say anymore because he's not pushing the colorism is a huge problem in my life and it affects me so much narrative. Hello there, Vice. You just told on yourself that you have an agenda of divisiveness.
Well, when I was a kid, no one looked my way. I think it's also dependent on my features and the country I came from, but also I was many, many shades darker. And as I got older, I was more, I could say, palatable to the white man. The people that might come up to me at a bar feel more comfortable coming up to me rather than someone who might be a darker Middle Eastern person. And I've been told things like, oh, you're Middle Eastern? I thought you were white. You're so pretty for Middle Eastern. And it's like, what? That's such an odd thing to say to someone, but I have gotten that many times in my life when my skin tone changed.
So for me, it's reverse. In the gay world, it's different. White boys want the BBD. You know what I'm trying to say, and that's just a true phenomenon that we navigate. In that, if you're light skinned in the gay world, you're not sought after like you are as a darker male.
You're not sought after from white men
from
or
white
from
men, like
other black men.
Absolutely, because that's just they want the darker to bear the sweeter juice. That's what's sought after in the gay world, and that's specifically with white men. I haven't.
How do we feel when people talk about preferences? Somebody might say, I don't have anything against darker skinned women. I just prefer light skinned women. I just prefer to date them.
The moderator must have been hungry because she says darker sconed women, like the British pastry scone.
I just really implore people to interrogate why they have certain preferences. We don't live in the vacuum. We're all interacting with the forces at play all of the time. So we don't come and arrive to our preferences independent of racism and featureism and fat phobia and texturism. I think it's all connected. So I think that's what confuses me. And I think people are really dishonest about the facts. So I would just say, if you have a preference for lighter skin, that's colorism. It's literally colorism.
Oh, really? Interrogate myself? Jesus Christ. Also, featureism, texturism. What is the leftist obsession with putting the suffix ism after all the words they say? I like coffee over tea. Is that drinkism? Do I need to interrogate myself about why I prefer coffee over tea? I just like the way coffee tastes. I don't hate tea. It's just that if I had the choice between coffee and tea, I would choose coffee. There's no deeper meaning. Why do leftists think everything is this deep, philosophical, sinister conspiracy theory? Maybe if someone isn't dating you, they don't like your personality, or they don't like the way you treat them. Have you ever thought about that? Why do you always think it must be because they don't like my face? If they asked you out in the first place, they probably liked your face. But then when you go on the date and you open your mouth and the words featureism, fat phobia, and texturism comes out, maybe they don't want to talk about that shit. Maybe they don't want to be interrogated by your leftist ideology. Maybe that's why they don't want to fucking date you.
Well, because how do you determine why someone likes something? And so I want to ask you a question. So in the beginning, you said if you're
Right.
choosing someone because of their color, you're discrimination. So if I say that I only date much darker women, is that a comment that warrants a deep dive in my head? Like, what do I have against light-skinned women? Or is it only in the reverse? And at what point is someone's preference up for debate?
Ha ha! Lamar flipped the narrative on its head. These other assholes keep pushing the fact that no one likes dark-skinned people. So I'm glad Lamar is questioning the narrative. More people need to do this. We shouldn't let leftists keep gaslighting us into thinking that things only go one way.
If you have a preference for a lighter-skinned woman, and we're all agreeing, I think, that colorism exists,
Of course, TK doesn't answer Lamar's question because the answer is probably no. She can't say that because that'll bust up her whole narrative of whining about colorism.
I don't understand how you could arrive to that preference independent of colorism, the system. I think more people prefer lighter-skinned women than darker-skinned women, and I don't think that's a coincidence.
I noticed that TK says,
I think more people prefer lighter-skinned women than darker-skinned women, and
which means that it isn't a fact, and that those are just her thoughts about it. She's pushing her thought as a fact because it fits the leftist ideology victim oppression Olympics bullshit.
Who you date says a lot about who you will advocate for, who you trust, who you believe deserves support, who you're willing to show up for.
This is why I said desirability politics, because it is political.
Oh, dear God, leftists think everything is political. The next time I turn on the TV, I'm gonna find out a leftist has said that going to the toilet is political, because that is how obsessed they are with making everything fucking political.
Because of like who you deem as pretty, like goes into like these other characteristics. Who you deem as ugly goes into these other negative characteristics. So it's like, yes, like who you desire, like who do you want to like, who you're attracted to goes beyond just romantic, intimate, sexual relationships. It also very much so blends into your platonic relationships as well. Your relationships with your coworkers, all other elements of your life. Like, I think that's why like it's important to think about colorism as not just like straightly around dating or just around like preferences, but also just like how do you treat the dark-skinned people in your life? I think everybody should ask themselves that. How many dark-skinned people are in your life or in your friend group? Like how do you treat darker-skinned people, individuals of all races? Like when you meet them on a day-to-day, like what do your interactions look like? What are your thoughts about them?
Careful there, your racism is showing. Why would you assume that I treat people differently based on their skin color? Is it because you do that and you think everyone thinks exactly like you?
The type of attention that I have received societally, professionally, and culturally is unlike anything that the darker women on my side of the family have experienced. It's very clear that when white people approach or engage with us or interact with us in any way, I am the one they feel comfortable talking to. I am the one that they want to take the order from. I am the one that they bring the bill to. I am the one that is deemed non-threatening. I am the one that is never loitering. I am the one that could never be doing anything wrong. And I feel like for the darker women in my family, that's extremely painful.
Have you heard of this term humble brag? It means when someone tries to cover their bragging with humility to manipulate the audience into feeling sorry for them. I tried to figure out why Koa's whole story annoyed me. She sounds entitled, while at the same time saying she has empathy for the darker-skinned women. It's because it's humble brag. She's bragging that people come up to her more than the darker-skinned women, but she's trying to pretend she's humble about it by crying at the end of her story and saying there's so much pain in it. Koa may be telling the truth, but her humble brag takes away from the effectiveness of her story because it just makes her sound like a spoiled brat.
Thank you for sharing that. So it's clear that, we obviously have different views on this topic. If we have so many people that are on different pages about this issue, how do we move forward as a society in changing it?
How do you change it? Stop being racist towards yourself. Stop being racist towards anyone. Stop imagining racism where there is none. Stop assuming that everyone else is going to treat darker-skinned people badly. Stop assuming that people treat you a certain way because of your skin. Maybe you have a terrible personality, Koa. Maybe you say a bunch of words that mean nothing, Maya. Maybe you're insecure about your own face, TK. Maybe do some self-reflection and stop blaming every goddamn fucking problem you have on racism. And maybe, just maybe, things will improve in your life. And maybe I will finally fucking get to stop hearing about racism.
I personally feel that colorism is never gonna end, honestly, but if I was to give a solution, I would say people should just, promote like all skin tones and have everyone on at an equal level and not one higher than the other.
One solution, or one kind of like tiny bit into the solution, would be just more media representation.
Yeah, I also think it starts, of course, in the home, the way you talk about it, but I think people that are in positions of power need to use their power, whether that be Black people or white people, use that power to show darker-skinned people in the media. You know, we need to see more of it.
You guys have already shown me that media representation doesn't work. TK said,
But I think seeing more dark-skinned women in the media, like Lupita Nyong'o, who's just like gorgeous, I was like, well, if she's beautiful, it's like, why do I think like dark skin is ugly?
tell me why you still think dark skin is ugly, TK. Clearly, the media representation doesn't fucking help, because if it did, seeing Lupita would magically make you go, oh, dark skin is beautiful now, I'm cured. So, does media representation help at all? How much fucking media representation will it take for you to shut the hell up about media representation?
The first thing you want to do is accept yourself. And then I think you're a little bit better equipped to fight against these things.
Finally, a voice of reason. Yes, Lamar. Take Lamar's advice. All of you fucks on the panel. Except Kelvin, you're fine. But the rest of you, the moderator too, accept yourselves. That is clearly the problem with all of you.
I think I want to kind of empower folks who don't think that they can make a difference. Yeah, and encouraging people to be more critical about their proximity to whiteness.
I'm honestly surprised proximity to whiteness hasn't been said more in this Vice panel. I suppose I should be happy about it, but that really is a shock. Oh shit, there's a white door next to me. Should I be concerned about my proximity to the whiteness of the door?
And how they take up space is one where, like, at least at the local level, we can maybe start to see some shift and change.
Get out of your echo chambers. If you are around people who are saying the same things and they're thinking the same way that you are part of the problem.
Kelvin is also right. Leftists are in one giant racist echo chamber. They are the problem. They need to stop fucking telling the rest of us that we're the problem they created.
I think that anything that we do to address or not address colorism will happen collectively and will happen across gender, across race, across class, across ability, and that purporting individual solutions is false and also very seductive.
Okay, we have a clear commie here. She says individual choices are pointless.
We should all do everything collectively. But what we do isn't to be said of what we do or what we don't do. But all of our race and all of our gender and all of our class should be collective, because individuals don't matter.
Yeah, I would say I implore people to believe that change is possible on many fronts, like on an individual level, like changing internally how you feel about yourself, your self-esteem, and also on a systemic level, demanding that the systems serve people who historically have been antagonized by the system. I think those two things should not be divorced from each other.
In terms of solutions to colorism, I would like to see these conversations prioritize the voices of, like, not just darker skinned people who have the lived experiences of colorism, but also like folks, or like usually it's darker skinned people who've like done research and like have expertise on like understanding the system of dominance. Like, I think that I'm really, really tired of seeing lighter skinned people like say the exact same things and parrot the voices of darker skinned people and get claps and applause by darker skinned people, received antagonism, you know, replicating colorism.
Jesus Christ, this person is so racist. She's really getting tired of seeing lighter-skinned people get applause. Say that about any other race. Replace the words lighter-skinned with darker-skinned, Mexican, Asian, and people will yell at you. As they should. So I am going to yell at you for saying racist things toward lighter-skinned people, because this double standard needs to fuck off.
Okay. I want to thank you all for giving us your time today. I know it was got pretty intense at time. It's a difficult conversation, but it is an important one. I don't know if we changed any minds, but I definitely learned a lot from listening to you all today, and hopefully our audience will as well. So thank you. Thank you for coming on.
I didn't learn anything I didn't already know, which is that leftists are incredibly fucking racist, and they want us all to be just as racist as they are.
Thank you for facilitating. Are we free to move?
Wait, we still have the other talks.
Great job.
Thank you.
Great discussion, guys. I can't wait to watch it.
Well, where do we begin?
I actually think it went pretty well.
It makes some people uncomfortable, so I came what I did to do.
I thought some other parts were kind of reductive in some ways.
The panel got a little bit spicy.
And also the rawness, no fluff, keeping it real.
I think it's impossible to talk about colorism and not get emotional.
Are you questioning me about whether it's emotional or not? People talk like this when they're insecure about what they are saying. In English, we raise our voices to indicate that we're asking a question. Our voices lower when we make statements. When someone says a statement but raises their voice, it implies they're unsure of what they just said. It seems like a lot of people do this nowadays, and I think it's because no one has their own thoughts anymore. Instead, they just listen to propaganda from the left and are always looking for approval for what they say.
I wish I didn't have to speak on colorism, but it affects too many people for me to be able to sleep well at night not to.
Definitely a layered topic.
I think that my face sometimes betrays me. I was laughing at some of the more absurd comments that were made during the panel.
And the most absurd comment was when you said there are 500 years of American history.
Colorism is sad, but it's a society we live in now, so we can't really do anything about it.
Yes, you can. You can stop being racist against your own selves. That is how you stop it.
We all have to believe that change is possible for change to happen.
No, we don't. All we need are brave people who are willing to break a stupid cycle, even if they get bullied for it. It only takes a few people to notice a problem and change something by alerting people to the fact that something is stupid. Like when I notice that you guys are being racist to your own selves, and I say it so maybe one of you will understand that you are causing your own problems. Even if you guys are mad at me or don't agree that you are causing your own problem. Now it's out there and you're thinking about it, even if you're mad about it. Then you can make a choice. Are you still going to keep this stupid cycle going, or are you going to evaluate what the opposing opinion said and make a change for the better? It is rare that everyone agrees on something. Do you realize how impossible that is? Because no one in any society ever has agreed with every single other person in their society, because we are all different.
Colorism sucks. It's real. That would be my final thought.
That's all for this annoying Vice panel. Thank you for watching, and I will see you on the next video.